April 1st, 2014. I'd like to call to order. The first item on the agenda is the future meeting dates. And I guess we're going to meet on the 17th and 24th. I thought that was changed.
Mr. Chairman, that has been changed
Yep.
because the 17th is Holy Thursday. So we were talking about other possible dates, being the 22nd, if you wanted to hold 2 meetings in 1 week, if you're available on the 24th, or possibly not to have 2 meetings in the same week, maybe have a meeting on the 28th, Monday the 28th, in the late afternoon, like maybe 4:30 in the afternoon.
Okay. And we have to set aside 1 meeting for the building commissioner. to come
That's
in.
April 22nd. You have to have that meeting, yes.
So we are meeting on the 22nd as well?
Our meeting on the
definite, yeah.
22nd, yes.
Okay.
But you would like to have one other meeting
Mhm.
after that, because you have the comment letter due on the 30th for the Hendry's 40B
Okay.
project. So, but I was
What's the
saying...
wish of the board? You want to meet after the 22nd?
I'm pretty, after the 15th, I'm fairly flexible, so my only concern about the 28th is,
In case
we have to meet on the
comments?
22nd, so whether you want to meet twice in a week on the 24th as well, I'm fine with that. I'm fine with the 28th, too. I'm just concerned that will there be enough time to, get our edits back and get that letter in by the 30th? That's
Right.
my only concern.
I can meet on the 28th late afternoon. I have another meeting at 6 that night, which is a Monday. It's the night before the election.
Mhm.
Okay. So if we do the 28th, it will be just for the letter for the Henrys?
Yes.
I would say so, yes.
Yes, it would just be a short meeting, just
Okay.
to approve the Henry's letter, 40B project.
If you prefer the 24th, I'm free on the 24th. That's Thursday night.
Matters not to me, as long as we think you can turn it around in those couple of,
Would you feel more comfortable if all 3 of you are available on the 24th to do 2 meetings in 1 week?
doesn't matter.
That's okay with me.
Your schedule,
I'm okay, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm here in April.
So then we'll do April 22nd and April 24th.
Hang on. Let's do, it's a personal plan, but I think I already have dinner plans for that night.
Okay.
Matter of fact, I'm sure I do.
Okay, so
So it would have to be the 28th,
28th,
yeah.
okay. Like 4:30-ish? Would that work for everybody?
It works for me.
Because it is election eve, and I know, Tom, that,
Tom has got stiff competition. You got to be...
Joe, it's like fighting against myself.
So the 28th is a Monday
and then
at 4:30?
at 4:30 on the
Okay,
28th.
I'm good.
I'm good.
And then could we meet on Thursday, May 1st, which would be after the election for the reorganization of the board, because town meeting is the next Monday, May 5th.
Mhm.
So would you be available May 1st? That's a Thursday evening. I know we're moving our nights around a little bit here, but unfortunately, we have a
Yeah.
lot to accomplish. Great.
Yeah.
Okay, so the 22nd of April, the 28th of April at 4:30, and Thursday, May 1st.
Okay. What if we have comments on the 28th?
We will.
Hopefully we'll have the stuff far enough.
I
Let's
think
push to get this letter
Yes.
so it's not last minute.
Department head comments are due by this Friday, April 4th. Once we receive all those comments, they will get right to town council, so we will have a
Can
little
we
bit
give
more.
town council just a drop dead date? That
Yes.
it will be in our, not, we'd like it, it will be in our hands by,
Yes.
you name the date. When do we want it? At least 3 or
3 or 4 days before the meeting on the 22nd.
April 15th, April 16th,
Well, if we're going to meet on the 28th and well,
the
I guess,
26th on the letter as well. You're going to meet,
Why don't we get it for the 22nd?
No, that way we might even be able to put it on the agenda both nights.
Exactly.
yeah, that's fine.
okay,
Yeah, so drop dead date would be the 22nd.
okay.
All right. Number 3 on the agenda is the approval of the payroll vendor warrants.
Move to approve the current payroll and vendor warrants.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
It's unanimous. Number 4, citizen speak. Anyone here for citizen speak? Mr. Duffy? Hello.
Thank you.
Hey.
Everybody. As you know, we had a
Yep.
As you know, we had an event planned for Joe Manning for April 10th, a week from Thursday. We have canceled that. Joe's not feeling up to par. We expect him to be home on tomorrow or Thursday. He's fine. He'll be all right. So anyone who has sent us a check, we will return the check in the mail. It should be there by your house by Friday or Saturday at the latest. Anyone who has paid cash, you can go to the assessor's office, and they have your name and your figures there. They'll take care of you in the assessor's office. We hope in about 6 weeks, when we finally have some good spring and summer weather, in about 6 weeks, we will have a new flag going up on the pole in honor of M. Joseph Manning. We can have a little ceremony here. We can have as many as we want. We can have 5,000 here in the open spaces. And we'll have a great day. If it rains, we'll all come in here and watch the flag go up, if it's all right with you. But he's going to be fine. We will have a nice ceremony. And the flags, as you know, last about 3 years. This current flag has been up for 3 years in honor of the town's 350th anniversary. The flags are specially made for us, Eagle Flag in Cohasset. They're cut specially, they're reinforced specially, and they're special size. So it's really an honor to have them here. And as you know, we had one for Joe Graziani, and we had one for Charlie Winchester, too. And so I appreciate your help, and looking forward to a nice time in about 6 weeks, if it's okay.
Okay.
But thanks for coming in,
Thank
Eddie.
you, everybody. Bye.
Okay.
Please give Mr. Manning our regards and best
I
wishes.
certainly will, Katie.
Thanks, Ed. Anyone else for citizen speak? Hello. If you could introduce yourself, please.
Well, everyone, my name is Matthew McCarthy. I'm a junior at Milton High School, and this year I will be running the second annual Milton Mini Relay for Life, held at the Copeland Fieldhouse on May 10th. So just a little history on relay. It started in 1986 with Dr. Gordy Klatt, and he was an oncologist. He decided to walk for 24 straight hours by himself on a track and raised $27,000 in his first relay. And then last year, Leanna Massey Green brought it to Milton High School, decided to have our own. And our first year was a very big success. We raised just under $20,000 for cancer research. Everything goes to the American Cancer Society, so everything goes straight into cancer research and treatment. And while many fundraisers in Milton are special to us, the Relay for Life is especially different from those. It's a life-changing experience for many. It allows families to have memory of their lost ones and also to celebrate ones that have been saved through the cancer research. And the day of relay, we are only allowed to have a mini Relay for Life because we're very young. It's only our second year. And so the event will be held from 2 to 9. Usually it's a 24-hour event. But for us, since we kind of have to prove ourselves, we're from 2 to 9 in the Copeland Fieldhouse. Different events that will happen that day. There'll be a survivor lap. There'll be a speech by a survivor. Last year we had Frank Civitone. He's an Olympic weightlifter who was diagnosed with cancer at the age of 20, told he had 6 months to live, and now he is 58 and still competing in weightlifting. We have survivor laps, the survivor speech, and then we also have daily events. We have relay races. Last year we had a mummy rap, we had a pie eating contest, a bunch of different fun stuff. This year we're having dodgeball, and then we also have a luminaria ceremony to conclude the event. This is a ceremony, all the lights go off, we have glow sticks, and we make bags. It's a luminaria bag in memory of someone that has been lost to cancer. And you line the track, and then you walk a lap in memory of those who have been lost. And that kind of sums up the entire event. It sums up what I'm trying to do here. We want to end cancer for good, and we relay for that. So we are planning a community leader lap. And what we would like to do is get all the community leaders from the entire town, from school committee, board of selectmen, parks commissioners, as many people as we can get to sign up for the event. You can sign up online at Milton Relay for Life, at relayforlife.org/MiltonMA. And you can sign up for the event this week only. It's a spring 50% discount on signups, so it's only $5 this week. Usually it's $10. You sign up, you create a team, and we could make a board of selectmen team.
Great.
You make a team and you go to the event, you walk one person from the reason behind the event is cancer never sleeps. That's why it's usually supposed to be a 24-hour event. And one person from the team is supposed to be walking on the track at all times while others can be participating in the other events we have. So if there was, say, to be a Board of Selectmen team, one person would walk the entire time while others fundraise to make money. You can bring different fundraising gifts. You can have a bake sale. You could have different, like a slush stand. You can have different things. So we are looking to get all community leaders to come out and walk a community leader lap to show Milton's stand up to cancer. and we look to go to all the community leaders, and especially the Board of Selectmen, to get their support.
Be honored to.
And this is from 2 to 9, is it?
2 to 9 on May 10th.
On May 10th. And when you said one member of the Board of Selectmen can do all the walking, is that from 2 to 9?
Yeah, well,
Or
yes,
so we-
and there can be other members like, from family on the same team.
Right.
That's just the point behind it. It doesn't have to be walking the entire time, but the point behind it is that you try and stay as long as you can. Obviously, I understand people are very busy on a Saturday in May, especially the day before Mother's Day. And we want to not focus strictly on breast cancer, but breast cancer obviously affects quite a bit of moms. So we're going to have a mother-son lap and then a mother-daughter lap to instill, again, the fact that mothers stand up to cancer, and we want to further that goal.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it sounds like an amazing event. It really
Amazing.
does.
Well, you're a credit to the Milton High School, I tell you that. And
I'd
we
be
can,
abs-
we
I'd
can
be
discuss
absolutely
if we'll
honored
put it in a team.
to. We'll have a team.
Let's put it in a
Together,
team.
now, that is the same day that the hospital's having its annual fundraiser, so 2 to 9, you know, I guess if we have a big enough team, we can have coverage there for the whole 7 hours, although we're going to have to leave a little bit early to go to the hospital event, but that's their big annual gala. But everything happens at once during the springtime. But we
Unfortunately.
could certainly put a team together and
Yeah.
get enough people to cover the full 7 hours.
I think, Anne Marie, you're good for a couple of hours.
Absolutely.
Paula?
And obviously, there's flexibility, but to get, especially for the community leader lap, I believe, we're not finalized on the times yet, but I believe the community leader lap is going to be held at 4. Between 3 and 4 will be our community leader lap, and that is really the most important time that we want everyone to be there. Walter Timmelty will be there, and many others.
Now, are you going to all the boards and committees and talking about this?
Yes.
Good.
Okay. So again, it's Saturday, May 10th, from 2 to 9 p.m.
Yep, in the Copeland Fieldhouse.
The Copeland Fieldhouse at the high school.
And then if you have any questions, you can email me at mattmccarthy216@gmail.com. Thank you for your time.
Excellent. Thank you,
Thank you.
Matt.
Thanks, Matt.
Well done. Okay, so next on the agenda is the comment letter to
Do you
Massport.
have anyone else for citizens?
Oh, citizen speaker, I'm sorry.
Brendan,
Didn't see it.
how
Come
you
on
doing?
up.
Hey, Brendan.
Brendan?
Brendan, how are you?
Very good, thanks. So I'm Brendan McLaughlin. I'm president of the Neponset River Watershed Association, and I'm here just to read a letter that we wrote in response to the suggested land swap on Truman Highway.
And this is the first time we're seeing this letter, Brendan? right?
Yes, correct, yeah. I think it should be in the mail to you, Dennis.
Okay. Well, I received an email about it today, but I hadn't,
Okay,
after I read the email, I realized I didn't see this letter.
okay,
So this is it.
okay. Is
Yep.
it, so I'd just like to just read the letter, is that?
Sure.
Okay. So the letter is written from our executive director, Ian Cook, to Chairman Cohane. And it says, Dear Mr. Cohane, Tabor Keeley of the Neponset River Watershed Association Board of Directors spoke at your March 4th meeting about the proposal by Milton Falls LLC to swap land which they presently own along the Neponset for land owned by the Mass Department of Conservation and Recreation downstream. Over the last several weeks, our board has been reviewing the proposed land swap, and I'm following up to convey our position and respond to several of the points raised in the March 4th presentation by Milton Falls. Let us begin by saying that the current condition of the site, dominated by dilapidated buildings, inaccessible to the public, and functioning as an attractive nuisance, is unacceptable and needs to be addressed. The Neponset River Watershed Association would like to see the T&H Dam removed and sediment contamination behind the dam remediated as part of the ecological restoration of the lower Neponset River that was endorsed by the Lower Neponset Community Advisory Committee several years ago. In the short term, we would also like to see installation of a canoe and kayak portage route around the dam. We believe that the best way to achieve the above goals is for the Commonwealth, the town of Milton, or a conservation group to own the site. This would allow it to be used for recreational access to the river, enable it to serve as a construction staging area for dam removal and sediment remediation, and possibly allow its use as a location for safely capping and consolidating the problem sediments. Our preference would be to see the Commonwealth simply purchase the land. subject to the owner demolishing and removing the existing structures. At this time, we are unable to support a swap and would only be able to support a swap in the future as a last resort, as discussed further below. DCR has discussed with Milton Falls LLC the possibility of a negotiated purchase of the land. Our understanding is that those discussions broke down over the question of municipal permits and approvals, or lack thereof, and how they would influence the value of the property. I also understand that Milton Falls presented DCR with a proposal for a land exchange, and that after significant deliberation was advised that there was no support for a swap at the staff level within DCR. As with any piece of public land, the protection of the site through a purchase or a swap can only occur at fair market value, as determined by an independent appraisal. That appraised value will hinge on what could be built on the property. Milton Falls has asserted that they can build 89 units of housing on the current property based on the zoning change approved by Milton Town Meeting, and they propose that the property be appraised on this basis. However, those units can only be built if Milton Falls can also obtain a wetlands permit and get the MBTA to sell them access rights to get under and/or over the railroad tracks. A large portion of the Milton Falls property is made up of areas subject to regulation under the Wetlands Protection Act, which would require the project to be substantially reconfigured or scaled back. The impact of the wetland regulation on the developmental potential of the site is unknown because the required permit applications are yet to be submitted. Milton Falls' largest hurdle is the MBTA. I spoke with Transit Realty last fall, the private company which represents the MBTA in such matters. Transit Realty indicated that a construction access agreement had been negotiated with Milton Falls several years ago, but that the fee associated with that agreement was not paid, so there is presently no agreement. Furthermore, if Milton Falls wanted to reactivate its project, Transit Realty indicated they would need to begin negotiations from scratch and emphasized it is not clear whether the MBTA would give Milton Falls a new agreement. It also appears the scope of the now defunct agreement with the MBTA would be too limited to accommodate the project's ongoing need for both emergency access and regular service access. Milton Falls' plan to widen the underpass through which most residents would need to access this site was also not included in the defunct MBTA permit. The cost of rebuilding an active MBTA bridge and excavating for an underpass would be extraordinary. In its discussions with Milton Falls, we understand DCR was prepared to scope an appraisal agreement upon the issue, once the issues of access over the railroad layout and municipal permitting were clarified. Milton Falls currently owns a piece of property of uncertain economic value because all the permits and access rights needed to build have not yet been secured. The Executive Office of Energy and Environmental Affairs, Article 97 Land Disposition Policy, lays out recommended procedures to be followed in situations such as these. Milton Falls has not gone through the recommended procedure for agency review of conservation land disposition, and now seems to be turning to the Milton Selectmen and ultimately the legislature in an attempt to bypass that procedure. We are anxious to see the Milton Falls property cleaned up and improved, but until Milton Falls can definitively demonstrate that their property has economic and ecological value equal to or greater than the payment they would receive in a purchase or a land parcel they would receive in a swap, cannot be considered a fair transaction. I would also observe that the Neponset Greenway Council and other constituencies we value are all solidly opposed to the swap. And finally, the abutters along Truman Highway in Milton and Hyde Park have been very vocal in their opposition to this project. With the above in mind, we ask the Milton Board of Selectmen to work with Milton Falls and the DCR to find a way to get the Milton Falls property cleaned up and bring it into public ownership without bypassing the standard procedure, Article 97, land disposition. And it's signed by our Executive Director, Ian Cook.
Thank you, Brendan. That's a good letter.
Thanks, Brendan.
Thanks very much.
Appreciate it. We'll comment on this at a later time. Yep.
Thank you.
Anyone else for citizen speak? Okay. Let's move on to the number 5 on the agenda. Comment letter to Massport, the FAA. Emery, you have that letter?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. This is a letter to Amy Corbett, the Regional Administrator for the New England Region for the Federal Aviation Administration, and to Thomas Glynn, Chief Executive Officer for Massport. And it is a letter articulating and outlining the issues that the town of Milton feel are excessive with respect to airplane noise.
Right.
And, you know, we are the first town south of Boston, so we do know that we have to have some airplane noise. But what we would like to see is that airplane noise shared equitably among all of the cities and towns in the region. So this is a letter outlining our concerns and some requests that we would like to see them implement on our behalf.
And this is a letter that has been edited and re-edited. And
That's correct. This has seen many eyes, this letter, yes.
Emery, or Katie, you were part of the editing of this letter?
Well, Chrissy Ambuto in particular, I think,
Yes.
was. I had a little hand in it, but, and the citizen group
And the,
also was involved in
yes.
hearing it.
Well, I read it, and I'm personally okay with it, Tom.
I'm fine with it.
Okay, so we have a motion if we want to move forward.
I'll move to approve a letter from the town of Milton to the Regional Administrator of the Federal Aviation Administration and the Chief Executive Officer of Massport requesting assistance in reducing airplane noise over Milton from flights arriving and departing from Logan International Airport.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any further comment? All in favor?
Aye.
It's unanimous. Okay, number 6 on the agenda is the DPW quarterly report. I'd like to invite up Joe Lynch, our DPW Director. Welcome, Joe.
Hey, Joe.
Just doing a little piece of side business out there. Appreciate that. Hope I didn't make you wait too long.
How's our DPW doing?
Well, I think we're busy, very busy, and I'm going to take a little bit of your time this evening, so long as you can indulge me, and if at any point I'm getting too verbose, please just let me know that, and we'll cut it short. As you know, we do an awful lot of things, and I try to break it down within the general disciplines of what we do. Starting with water, right off the bat. Our water main replacement program, we're in the midst of completing our final designs and for our bid documents to go out for this year's bidding. The projects would look to upgrade various sections of that Harland Street water main between Canton Ave, Harland, and Hillside, which ultimately is going to remove some restrictions or constrictions in that area that feeds the 2 tanks on Chickatobit. And you've heard the discussion of the Chickatobit tanks in the past, and we'll talk about them a little bit later on today. That work will be done this summer and completed this summer. As you all know, we've executed that agreement with Canton that we hammered out since the last quarterly report. It's been signed. Highlights in that is we were able to secure our use of that looped piping so long as we need it through November of 2016. We restructured the billing rate from which we bill Canton, though there was a piece in the newspaper that says that, that we are now paying Canton. That's incorrect. I want people at home to understand that in fact, Canton continues to pay us just at a different rate. And we've collected $125,000 approximately in unpaid back water charges from Canton. And we also have turned over the Green Street customers back to the Canton town. We were able to isolate the system and give those customers back to them. So those were major accomplishments that we were able to do all fall and through the winter.
Right.
Our preliminary water assessment, and you're never going to hear me say this probably again in my career, our preliminary water assessments from the MWRA are only being projected at a 0.7% increase over last year. A lot of it goes back down. If you look at the MWRA as a whole, all member communities' assessments are going up by 3.9%. So we are only the second lowest rate increase in the entire system. A lot of effort has gone into, as you probably have followed over the years, with us challenging the metering accuracy and the work that they did on the southern spine and some estimated readings that were happening during construction. The system is stabilized, the metering issue has ameliorated itself, and we're seeing measurable benefits to our assessment, which is a
But
huge,
no
very good
indication
news.
whether they clearly won't make an indication the meters were inaccurate in the past to try and recover?
No, there's no smoking gun here. We actually studied it in great detail. Quite frankly, there was so much inconsistency with the two old meters, meter 27, 127. They had been probably under reading for years. When they built the Sutton spine, we went through a good 18 months where one or both of those meters were inactive. We were getting estimated readings based on prior consumption.
Okay.
And now that we've gone through a couple of full billing cycles, full fiscal year uses, we're seeing the benefit of the accuracy of those new meters.
Now, when you say accurate, they're accurate compared to what we're metering out for?
Well, I think what we saw, I think when the new meters first went in, for the first time, for years of under-reading perhaps because they were old meters, and then the new meters suddenly going in, reading more accurately at a higher rate, we saw, sorry about that, we saw a one-time bump of high metering. But that was only a one-time bump, and now that, as compared to the last year and the year before, we're finding that, in fact, our consumption is not increasing year to year. So I think what we were seeing is artificial changes through some of the issues in the system itself, and mostly attributed to construction, inaccurate meters that were old, and the new meters coming in. And those things alone. But the good news is, this should be a trend so long as we don't continue to change any of our use. If we continue to contain our use the way we have, we're likely to contain our assessments in the future.
Do we monitor at all? And I know we do, certainly at the end of the year, but the rate that the water is coming in compared to the usage for residents?
Without getting too technical, there's two metering systems. There's one meter, but there's telemetry, electronic transmissions. We have the ability to read our meters on an instantaneous basis. We can trend them. We can look at them in the past 8 hours, 12 hours, past week, past month. It differs somewhat from their billing metering. So they take that same electronic reading and it goes into a different billing accounting system. They're not that far apart. But we have the ability, and we do every single morning, is look what our overnight activity was. We compare it to what it was the day before, and we look at it on a trend if we're seeing anything. So what you do is if you see some high flows that are occurring 3 o'clock in the morning that weren't there yesterday, you've got a leak in your system that suddenly turned up and you got to go find it. So that's why we look at them every morning.
Okay. But I guess what I'm talking about is just unaccounted for water in terms of water coming in through MWRA meters and...
We're in the midst of doing a statistical report right now, but that will likely be one of the benefits, is that the statistical unaccounted for water, I prefer to use the term unbilled, because we can account for our water. You know, water that goes on a forest fire, water goes on a house fire, water that goes in a water main leak, and we can estimate. We can account for that water, it's just that it wasn't billed. So I think by seeing our metering at the revenue meter diminish, you will likely see our unaccounted for, unbilled, go down.
Okay.
At this rate, we're going to be here 4 hours. My fault. We also commissioned the master plan for our water system. We've already completed the hydraulic capacity analysis. We've done our fire flows, look at hydraulic capacity. We've looked at the looping and the redundancy. These have to look at our system as a whole, but we also have targeted focusing on what is that Canton question impact. At this point, the master plan with regards to the hydraulic piece is in its final draft stages. The preliminary findings that I can report here today informally, but we'll be preparing to prepare them more formally in the future, is that we likely do not need to replace our pipe in Canton. We still need to use it to November of 2016 because there are some upgrades in our tanks that we need to do in Milton. There was some thought that it could be as catastrophic as all 3 tanks have to be torn down and much higher, taller, as much as 25 additional feet higher, might be necessary in order to get the tanks to function. It is looking like we don't need to replace the tanks. We can simply upgrade the existing tanks.
That's good news.
Considerable savings. But nonetheless, time-consuming, so we still need that November 16 deadline, you know, to work to our benefit. But to achieve the lower tank elevations, we'd have to install a pressure-reducing valve at our meter 55, our high-pressure meter, which was simply, so people at home can understand, it would be in the daytime when there's higher demand, you can close that valve down and let the tanks move down, so ride off the tanks, if you will. If there's a big demand in the system, like a fire or whatnot, The pressure-reducing valve senses that, opens the valve, and the tanks refill to meet those fire demands. And what that will allow is those tanks to move up and down,
Keep fresh water.
maintain your pressure, and keep your water fresh, which was one of the concerns we had earlier, if you remember. We're also going to need to make several local improvements to undersized pipe segments, not just the Howland Street we're going to do this year. That one we know about, but there are others, across various parts of the system. Those things collectively, when they're all done, can certainly be done by that November 2016 deadline. This report also takes a look at all the other piping improvements that we need to do over the next 10 years. It's looking at improving reliability, in other words, redundancy if there is a major break, and then any public safety by, augmenting fire flows in neighborhoods that may be less than desirable. It's also recommending the replacement of our revenue meters, which capital plan's fully aware of, planning committee is aware of, and that's to replace our meters in an incremental basis over the next 5 years, 20% per year, to improve our metering accuracy.
Joe, how often should you replace meters?
You're asking two questions in one, and I'm going to say that the mechanical part, the piece that, it's like the odometer that turns, that actually registers, that mechanical part's good for 15 or 20 years. These are about 10 to 12 years old. The second piece of it is the ERT, the electronic radio transmitter, that the piece that sits on your meter. The battery life, we're finding out, is that 10 to 12 range, and as the batteries are dropping off, our ability to actually capture and read the meters is diminishing. We're losing capture rate. The cost of the battery replacement, it's a sealed battery, it's built right in. The cost of the battery replacement is as much as a new meter and a newer. So the reality is the meters are accurate, and we're looking at a newer technology. I mean, you taking advantage of improvements in technology in diminishing in price over as technology improves. We're actually going to get a better, more robust system that's less power hungry from an energy perspective, and be able to be more reliable.
Thanks, Joe.
The second piece of that master plan was we broke it out into financial and operational, and we broke it out to the hydraulics piece, because they really almost stand alone. Now that we know what our capital hydraulic needs are going to be, the operational efficiency and financial analysis, the rate structure evaluation can move forward, and that looks to take a look at our metering and data collection processes, not so much the physical part of reading meters. It looks at our capital planning and our debt service forecasting and what that might do to our rates. And it looks at analysis of our rate structure, and this is something that has been on the table for several years, and we've pledged to deal with in this year's rate setting question, and that's to use tiers or not tiers, to how we address, or might we not address multi-unit buildings, and whether we want to use irrigation meters, or continue to allow irrigation meters versus domestic use meters, and so on. It's looking at all of those options, and many more. The sky's the limit when it comes to rate structuring.
Joe, on that point, when you were here, I think in the fall, we talked about the process for that and the fact that there would be some public meetings at some point.
There will need to be.
I know there was a delay, or there were some issues that with all the work that the consultant was doing, that we were pushing the public meetings back a little bit. Do you have a sense of when we can start those and what the timing will be?
I can tell you that the deadline would be that you'd have to have a water and sewer rate in place in mid-August.
Yep.
That process needs to really be going full blast, on my perspective, by mid-July, which means that we should be looking at May and June to be looking at the rate structure question. So you almost have to back-figure it in order to have that to happen. The big piece of what happens with your rate setting in forecasting this financial piece of the puzzle is, what your debt service needs going to be. Are we talking about a $6 million solve the Canton problem answer, or are we looking at something that may be $2.5 million? So how that fit into your debt service and how that fit into your rate structure is going to be paramount to the discussion. So we needed to complete that first piece in order to take that second step.
And will the public meetings be after there's different proposals put together by the consultant, and those will be the topic of discussion at the public meetings, or will the public meetings get input and then the consultant will come up with some options?
I think both options have pros and cons. I think there's an opportunity that should be granted to people to come in and voice their concerns. And I think that you're not going to get an answer that's a uniform answer that solves every question at any table. but it gets them on the table early on, so as our consultant goes back and does what they do well, which is understand rate structure, what other communities do, and they got the ability to look at the cross-section of Massachusetts and New England and national trends of what people do. It allows them to take into consideration those tools in the toolbox and what you might want to use. But I think once you get that public input initially, I think it really, far be it for me, but I think the call ultimately ought to come down to the water commissioners and sewer commissioners, because I think you just get tied up in back and forth with the public.
Yeah, I just want to make sure we have enough opportunity for instance, the condo building at 88 Wharf Street, which has raised this issue a number of times over the
Right.
years, even prior to the time I was on the board, it's been an issue. So we'd like to give them enough notice, the community at large, but especially groups such as 88 Wharf that have raised issues about the tier system before, an opportunity to be at the public meetings and have some input at that level.
I guess if we switch to a single tier, it kind of solves itself in terms
Right.
of the multi-unit.
Exactly, so
Yes.
you may hear them out initially, and if you look at the type of trend that our town has seen, where the four-tier system may not make sense anymore, and quite frankly, it certainly makes enough sense that you should look at whether you want to continue using it or not.
I think the other thing to
Very much a question.
consider too is, and if you, start looking at the, the master plan that we're currently underway with and looking at future growth and potential future growth in Milton, more likely than not, a lot of that growth will be multifamily type of growth. That conventional single-family housing just kind of worldwide, or certainly is not as attractive as it used to be. That more and more, because of an aging population or because of just economics of younger people and just the way their lifestyles are, I think you're going to see more multifamily type of housing growth. So it's certainly something that needs to be addressed.
Yes.
So that's on the water side. Next big issue is, the next big discipline we deal with is the sewer. As you all know, we've heard lots about, is we identified a long-standing problem with people connected to sewer, thought to be connected to sewer and not getting charges. Quick overview on this, because we've talked to this ad nauseum over the past several months. There were 420 properties initially identified. 24 have already been identified as targets. 24 have actually been confirmed. It's approximately 220 properties that require an inspection, with 175 properties out there that any connection to the sewer is probably a remote possibility, but going through this effort, we want to conclude that they are not. So that's included in this. As you know, we've drafted a formal policy, and the Board of Selectmen adopted that on March 18th. We are calculating the assessment for for the past 6 years for those 24 confirmed properties. We're going to notify those owners by letter and applying the assessments to those accounts, and that'll be done by April 15th.
So just refresh my memory, in terms of those 24 houses, obviously they've already been identified and are being billed.
Put on the
So
rolls.
they have no, do they have any room for amnesty at this point, or no? I guess they don't, right?
We didn't include that in our
Right,
deliberations.
I know, we never really discussed what to do with those 24 houses that might have come forward. They might be-
I know that question came up, we'd have to check the policy again.
Yeah, I know the policy off the top of my head at this point. Let me offer this and see how this sits with you folks, and maybe an interpretation of the policy tonight makes sense. These are accounts that Milton knew about. People went through a process. We had ties. We had records. We failed to issue the bills on these 24. I don't think the homeowners did anything wrong here. I think they're eligible for amnesty, my take on it. So we should go back 4 years and not the 6. Not my call, but that's.
That's certainly a discussion we can have. though.
Yeah,
We probably should put on the agenda as to what to do with those 24.
So I'm going to amend what I said. I'm not going to send out those letters on April 15th until such time as that policy gets revisited. Those letters, we can send out, upon completion of that policy, a clarification of that policy. So out of the 245, 220 properties thereabouts that bear this inspection, that's the ones that was the meat of this policy. They're all going to get the letters. They're going to be going out by April 7th. by next Monday, I believe. And it's going to basically tell them everything the policy says. Whatever investigation going on, your property may or may not be connected. If you think it may be connecting, you'll encourage you to come forward, so on and so forth, giving them the deadlines spelled right out. So with that policy now in place, we are taking that step. And it's more onerous than I thought, because the list is quite large, and just putting the database together to do the mail merge is huge. We also have an issue twice this winter, whether it's frost-related or not. We think it's not frost-related, but the force main that runs from Randolph Avenue and runs up the hill from the Randolph Avenue pump station, which is down in Wollaston's front entrance, and it runs up the hill and goes to Gravity at Reed Street. We had 2 fractures of that force main, sewer main, this winter. The condition of the pipe where we made those repairs looks like it's corrosion and rot in the pipe itself and not frost-related or winter condition-related. So we're actually investigating the need to replace that section of force main, and if that's the case, that'll be part of next year's rehabilitation project. Inflow and infiltration, I'm going to cut this one real quick, but it's also important to note some of the successes here. We do rehab, we do our II, inflow and infiltration work, in 3 different levels every single year. We investigate TV work, clean and investigate with TV work, which will form design contracts, which we will then put out to bid, which we then build or make those repairs during that year. And we're always lagging a year behind as we move through the process. So when I refer to year 8, year 9, or year 10, it's because of the way we move the project forward on a continual basis year after year. So all the work we did last summer, simply put, we come back in the spring and we retest, just quality assurance, and everything we did last year works and is fine, and nothing failed, so that's great news. They've already started our year 10 evaluation. NEPCO's got the contract. They're already in town working. That'll be completed before summer sets in, not before summer is over. You want to do that work when groundwater is high, and after this weekend, groundwater is high everywhere.
Sure.
We implemented the II mitigation program. We're in year 9 this year. We're putting about 20,000 linear feet. We do about 3.5 to 4 miles of rehab work every year. That's it's in design work now. It's complete. The bid documents are being prepared. It's going to go out to bid in a few weeks. That work will be done this summer, fall, and will be done before winter. We're going to look at a targeted pilot evaluation program for inflow. What we're going to do is we're going to do smoke testing. We talked about this in areas where we may also have a high situation of questionable houses that may or may not be connected to sewer, but we could basically get answer to 2 questions by doing 1 test. And we're going to look for areas where we think we might have high inflow, in areas where we may also have a high number or a high degree of questionable house connections, and try to target those neighborhoods and do this year's pilot. I say pilot because Milton has not done a smoke test evaluation, I believe, ever. So this will be the first time we're doing it. And there's always going to be some pushback, because we need to feel out what the public thinks, and especially in the first year, communication is going to be essential to let people know why we're doing it, and what they might see, and what some of those impacts might be in their homes. Those impacts being like non-dangerous smoke accumulating, so that requires advanced notice and newspapers and emails and whatever, canvassing of flyers to the neighborhoods before it gets done, so on and so forth. So why do we do all that II work? This next thing, it's a long, long, long bullet, but I'm going to just really hit the high notes on this thing. I talked about our preliminary assessment on the water side. Let's talk about preliminary assessment on the sewer side. Our preliminary sewer assessment this year over last is 0.5%. It's amazing. When you look at water and sewer, we've got things under 1.5%.
Wow.
And I don't mind saying amazing, because it's the hard work of the people in my department, and the cooperation of the folks in town here, and the selectmen and capital groups who allow us to do this work year after year. These benefits are real, and they're financial. How do we really prove it's II? Well, we've seen a 3.9% reduction in our maximum 1-month flow. excuse me, our average monthly to 3.9%. We've seen our maximum one-month flow reduced by 21.7%. That means in those areas, when the groundwater is high and the rains come, those pipes aren't leaking anymore, bringing on stormwater, and we're not being assessed for it anymore. So I can completely say the value of our IA program is paying off in dividends.
That's great.
Good.
Highway, and this just speaks to the roadway systems in general. No lie, no secret either, that major pothole damage this winter. Winter was ridiculous, in the rains and the freezing and thawing and the extremes of both really beat the heck out of our roads, causing us to really reconsider, I mean, the value of going in and fixing a minefield of potholes versus going in and maybe having to reclaim sections of roadways or grind out sections of roadways and do thin overlays and crack seals and other types of things. It's going to be important. It's going to look like Band-Aids, but in the long run, it's going to look better than pothole patching. It's going to last longer, and it's going to be more cost-effective. But it's forcing, this year's winter is forcing us to look at those other techniques. Now, that's done at the expense of perhaps doing less roadway work this year, because that money has to come from somewhere. And nonetheless, we're going to have to look at long stretches of pretty busy roads that have really taken their toll by winter. But on the high side, we have roadway reconstruction that are in their final phases: Governors, Cary, Brush Hill, Walcott, Williams, Atherton, and the sidewalks on Brook Road. They're all going to be completed this spring, early summer.
Well, some of them are done already.
Some of them are not completely finished. There's still some restoration work, shoulder work, and sidewalk work and whatnot.
Right.
But a lot of them, are, for the average layperson, they look pretty complete. But some still need some minor attention.
Joe, there's been, I've gotten a number of questions, and I guess it's just the public, not with respect to Central Ave in terms of, well, some of the questions are, how come it's so atrocious, and it's because we're in the middle of reconstructing it, but questions as to what it's going to look like when it's reconstructed. If you could go over that just quickly again, maybe.
It's going to look, with the exception of the intersections at Hinckley and Valley, it's going to look much like it does now. We are going to be adding a sidewalk, and only a sidewalk, on one side, which is the northerly side, the Hoosick Club side, just up as far as Valley, where there's no rock outcroppings, because there's a section in there that's missing, and we're doing that to the extent that the funding allows.
Okay.
Right now, it looks like we're going to be able to get there so long as we don't get into too much rock. But the earlier considerations, I call it the tail wagging the dog, and I didn't coin that phrase or the cliche. We were chasing federal highway money. We needed to make the project look sexy. We needed to compete. To do that, we decided it needed to be multimodal, so it needed a bike accommodation, which was a separate trail. This is going to have parking of both sides where parking is now. It's going to have on-street bicycle accommodation with shared lanes with the travel lane. It's going to be as wide as it is, not any narrow. We were looking to narrow it before. There was also going to be a second sidewalk, if you will, which was a multi-purpose trail. That's not happening. The sidewalks are pretty much going to be where they are, and where there aren't, we're going to try to connect those sidewalks in the same line.
Bump outs at all at crosswalks?
Only at Hinckley and at Valley, and that's going to introduce refuge islands in the middle, and to allow pedestrian access coming out of the feeder neighborhoods, coming down out of Valley from the Columbines and coming down Hinckley out of the Columbines, where most of the pedestrian walking crew on their way to the Pierce School and to the Glover School come out of those neighborhoods. So we've created choke points, and we're going to put refuge islands in, because the road is so wide. So it allows a person to get halfway across the street, be able to hesitate there in safety, be able to make the second crossing safely.
Are those choke points close enough in distance to calm traffic too?
No.
No. So there'd be no real traffic
No,
calming?
there will be no traffic calming. And you know, the truth be told, and it's no secret, that a road that's in deplorable condition, such as Central, has an inherent traffic calming by people trying to preserve their cars and go slower. Once it's repaved, they're going to go faster. So there's going to need to be some stepped-up enforcement from the police department. It's particularly true on a main road, not so much true on a neighborhood road. But even in a neighborhood road, people drive faster in their own neighborhoods when it's a new surface. And I do have some information on Central further down here. I don't want to get too bogged down, but, you know, Bradley and Churchill's, they both have, their water main work is already done. We've got some drainage work that needs to be done. Those are both slated for road work to be done, to start this week, this summer, and go right through the winter, and then completed by next spring, during next spring. The very initial phase is the Central Avenue, which we talked about. We're using a roadway management provision in the South Shore Consortium contract, which the way we've done our roadways mostly is we broke it into trades, reclaiming, paving, curbing, sidewalk with various vendors, and we as a town ultimately become the general contractor. There is a provision, which doesn't make sense on small projects, but does on something like Central, to simply have a GC. And TL Edwards has that provision in the roadway management part of the contract to come in, soup to nuts, and it's their contract.
They'll hire the contractors.
Right, and we've already met with them, and they're actually, no promises, they're actually talking about, they promised that they're gonna get the road reclaimed and cold planed where it can be, in a leveler in the cold planed area, in a binder in the area where it's reclaimed, to have that done by early summer, and they're really saying by the end of May. That's their goal. So at least the roadway surface will become smoother and more passable. But then it allows all summer long and fall and next spring to let the lion's share of the off-roadway work, the sidewalk and the curbing and whatnot, to move forward.
But is this the only job you'd hire a GC on? Because it,
The only one we were doing in this approach, and it's just the sheer size of it, it's plenty big enough to do it. When we're doing a lot of smaller neighborhood roads, and we're biting them off in bits and pieces, and we're leapfrogging through neighborhoods, you can't do it in a GC fashion. And economically, it doesn't make sense. On a larger project, the scale is there, that the economics work out, so it's actually more efficient and it's cheaper.
right?
Pleasant Street, where we did the water main work last year, that's gonna get completed, that'll be completed by this fall. Spafford, we did the water main last year, that's gonna be completed this fall. Long Meadow and Pinehurst, those have good water mains in them. Those are gonna be reclaimed and binder installed this summer. Curbing and sidewalk this fall, and roadway should be completed certainly by next spring. It could be done as early as this fall. High Street, which we did in conjunction with our ideas on the Mass Works grant on Elliott.
Joe, just on High Street, you mentioned about the light poles.
Utility poles, I was going to mention that here, too.
Gotcha.
Excellent. The drainage work was all done last year, the water main work has been done, the gas main work is done. We got the road reclaimed, we got the binder in last fall. The utility poles were in our way for the curbing and the retaining walls to do what we needed to do. So we, as a community, asked NSTAR, told them, you're gonna move the utility poles, they're in our way, which we have the authority to do. When you guys do a granted location, it gives them permission to be there, but if they were in our way at any time, it also gives them the obligation to move them. So they were in our way, we asked them to move them. They have an application pending with you, and as a matter of full disclosure, because you, as Board of Selectmen, and me as a town administrator to my department, we've put the thumb down on NSTAR on other instances where they've done work beforehand and came in for a permit after the fact. This is the opposite. We're telling them to move the poles. They have a permit pending, and in order to not delay our construction, they've already moved the poles, and they're now just restringing the wires overhead. So I think you've got something on agenda coming up, maybe the 22nd, maybe the 28th. So don't get too hard on NSTAR by telling them they've done work without a permit. It's because I've insisted. If that's okay. Reconstruction work, because NSTAR came in and moved the poles, reconstruction work starts this Monday. Our contractor's back in doing the retaining walls, curbing work, sidewalk work, and they'll be out of there early summer.
Joe, all the utilities are done on all these streets, right?
Yes.
Water, sewer, gas, everything.
That's correct.
What happens if somebody wants to open up the street again after it's repaved?
5-year moratorium.
5-year?
5-year moratorium, and that can be waived to the extent that what the demand is, and that the restoration standard requires flowable fill, it requires an infrared patch, it requires maintaining that patch for much longer than the 3-year bond. We may require them for the full 5 years, and in the end, it's all about roadway preservation. Nothing's more embarrassing than than opening up a roadway. We work with, we work with developers who maybe have something in the pipeline, and we're aware of something in the pipeline. And we encourage them to try to get their utilities off the street before we come in. So most of these streets we're dealing with, I shouldn't say for Central, because I don't know what's in the pipeline out there. There could be a piece of vacant land that I'm not aware of, but
No, I'm just saying, we have a brand-new road on Brush Hill Road, and now Curry College will be opening it up again to connect for water and sewer and gas.
Yep.
And it's a new street.
yep, and they're obligated to maintain that exactly that
Right.
way.
But is there an added fee for the application? Because I know in Boston, if you want to open up a new street, which is obviously if it's repaved within 5 years, it's like $10,000 just for the permit to open up a new street. Whereas if it wasn't a new street, it's like $2,500. And you still have to do the flowable fill and maintain it and put up a bond and everything.
We do not have that distinction in our regulations as they currently exist.
We're spending a ton of taxpayer money here on new roads, and they're opening it up immediately after we get it repaved. I think the application fee should be a lot higher. We got to pay it all the time.
A regulation is a regulation, it's not a bylaw, so it doesn't take a town meeting action. A regulation is adopted by the Board of Selectmen. It can be changed or amended or rewritten after the conduct of a public hearing. Do we post it? So the Board of Selectmen, at any time, we can revisit any regulation and make provisional changes. Don't like picking away at 'em item by item. If you're going to be looking at opening up a public hearing for a particular item, you might want to consider several.
Right.
That probably makes sense. Now, my understanding, though, is any fee change has to be justified, at least that it emulates the cost of providing the service?
With the public utility, with gas company or any underground cabled utility, yes, because they're regulated under the Department of Public Utilities, and it was Boston Gas. Boston Gas? I think it was. It was Boston Gas versus the Commonwealth. They actually came down on several communities back in 93, 94-ish. And those towns that had good cooperative relationships with mostly it was the gas company, found themselves, because some towns got very, very aggressive, and because of those aggressive communities, they just went to the DPU and they just threw out the baby with the bathwater, and nope, the restoration standards went away. Couldn't hold them to any higher standards, and you couldn't charge them any higher fees. They did allow permit fees that you could commensurate with the level of effort it took to administer the permit, and
Right.
only that.
Right.
So, I don't know how Boston's doing it. There may be some other way around it. Maybe they have an outright moratorium that they can waive by a fee, and,
I'll look into it and I'll get back to you.
Sure.
Yeah.
And actually, on that point, Tom, is the trench restorations, which is highlighted at the top. I didn't put any words next to it because I ran out of time. I apologize. But we are actually having an issue with the gas company. They owe us. They used to come in every single spring and freshen up the trenches from last year's or the prior year's work. They haven't done that in 3 years, and some of their trenches are falling apart. And I'm just giving fair warning that I'm about to come down pretty darn heavy on the gas company, to the extent that I may actually, that they post a bond once for the entire year, not every time they dig. I may actually work to rule and simply say to them, no, you're going to post a bond on every single trench, and if you don't restore it that following spring, we're going to seize your bond and we're going to fix it for you.
Right.
Because they are just not cooperating. The gas company is out of control.
I'd like to see you get control. All right, continue, John.
Highway, next page. Mass Works. We got the $1 million grant, we know that. We finally have executed the contract with the Commonwealth. It's been signed. We've executed a contract with Beta Engineering Group. The survey and design are ongoing. Preliminary designs are being developed, and they're being based on the premise of the preliminary concept designs that were submitted with the grant application. These bid documents are going to go out to bid early summer. We're going to get construction started. This seems very aggressive, but it's necessary. Construction started this summer through the fall, and then completion in the spring. And it's because there was a sunset on funding of this $1 million in spring of 2015. The sad truth is we went from last January through this January just getting MassWorks to shake the contract loose out of Boston. And they basically ate a whole year of construction work out of us. So I'm not saying, and I'm not promising, but I'm certainly saying we're going to make a case with the folks at MassWorks that said, hey, look, this isn't fair. This can't be June of 2015 when the window closes. Give us at least the entire construction season to December of 2015. And if we get some pushback, we'll have to solicit some help from our delegation and get a better understanding of why there was a whole year delay on their part.
And you wouldn't want to have done the work before now anyway, with the new apartments on Elliott Street. And, you want them to get out of the way and get off the street.
Betwixt and between, because the section in front of their apartment, they own that work that we're going to do for the rest of the street. They own it as part of their permit. So they're doing that work on their own. We could have done it with the same contractor. It may have gotten confusing, by the way. So the truth be told is, you draw a line from their construction limits to where it ends, on either end. Any of the lights, any of the street furniture, the cement sidewalks, the brick inlays, all of those things, they have to do as part of their project anyway. So I don't think it really affects, that project would have affected what we're doing on the rest of the street.
Wow.
We were trying to package it in with our work for the High Street project because there would have been some benefit in
That would have been
getting
good,
some
yeah.
continuity there. We just finally had to say, too bad, we're not waiting on the state. We started High Street on our own. And it's interesting to say that we're going to complete our project before the other one even starts. Sorry. Stormwater, street sweeping, we've begun for the season, just the expectations for the people out in the neighborhoods. We've hit in the areas that are heaviest. It may seem early, especially if you get more snow, but every ton of sand you get off the road now is a ton you don't have to worry about later on. The worst of winter, God help us, has got to be over. So we've started. What I can tell for people to know is that we're in the main roads of the business districts more frequently, that the business districts are getting swept once a week. Every street in town will get swept at least once a year. And the main roads, we're going to get swept maybe once a month, depending on the litter we're seeing and the cleanliness of the streets. So, someone's going to be first and someone's going to be last every year. We do try to mix it up. There's a logic of gravity that's involved because you want to start high on the hill and sweep. Just like when you're vacuuming, you don't vacuum at the front door and then drag mud in. You start at the worst area, moving it down, and then you clean the catch basins as you go, and you do your cleanup behind you as you go.
Of course, there's a lot of sweeping to be done after all the potholes. And,
once we start sweeping, my fear is the potholes are going to
Get worse.
because we're going to tear out and vacuum out any of the loose asphalt that's still in there. So,
Joe, how do you, just for the public's knowledge, I used to live on Big Blue Drive, and I know it's like...
that was a minefield.
Driving through Beirut, there's so many potholes on it now, but how do people get in contact with you and let you know there's potholes there? Just call the DPW yard?
Until we get our People's GIS call resolution application running, the best way is call the 4900 number. Be patient. You listen to the menu, and it'll direct you to the correct line to report various things. And one will be a pothole or a street defect, and they leave a message there that will result in it being put on a work order. As our People's GIS automation of work order tracking and service requests gets done, people will be able to do that from their iPhone, will be able to do it from the computer at home, can be doing it from their phone and get it right into our system. But we're still not up and running on that yet.
Now, in relation to that, because Dennis brings up a good point, there are a number of streets that are almost unpassable. Robbins Street, for example, is unpassable.
It is, yeah.
It's unpassable.
And there was some major flooding out there this weekend.
Yes, I saw
coming out
all
of
the water.
woods, which made it even worse in some stretches.
You really can't, the right-hand side of that road, if you're coming down the hill, you cannot drive on it. It's dangerous.
That's right.
And that's what really made me stop this whole thing about the condition of our winter impacts, is it's going to have an impact. We may be paving fewer roads this year just because we have to go out
Fix
in
the-
a larger wholesale fashion and just hold some of these streets together. And I'm not saying these are going to last 10 years or 40 years. You go out and rebuild a road, you hope to get 40 years out of it before you have to do anything major to it.
Stopgap.
I'm saying this is stopgap. This is to hold it together, get 3 or 4 or 5 years, maybe. But it's going to be cheaper than throwing pothole mix in by hand manually and, having, and you never get them. It's just not the way to do it. But the effect is it has to come at the expense of other roadway work.
That being said, and I know I've talked to Anne Marie, I think I've talked to you about it too, but just over this summer, trying to put all of our heads together and figure out a way to deal with at least some of the Chapter 90 shortfall. I mean, we have to do it.
Anne Marie and I have caucused ever so briefly on a number of occasions on this, and we understand the importance of it. It's like a hydra. But and you were sitting on the capital committee, you know, it's a big issue. It's a real big issue, and with big issue physically, and it's a valuable issue in the bigger picture.
Sure.
And what the impact is on our finances in town. Very complicated because what state law allows you to do and not do with federal highway money and state money.
Right, like my plan, for example, doesn't work as the law currently exists at least. And, but, I mean, it's too important an issue to leave to the whim of, do we have room in our bonding formula this year to...
Yeah, and Tom, you're at an advantage where you sit on the capital committee, and you've heard me come in and talk about the effect, and it's common sense that, the longer you defer maintenance, when it becomes essential, in the end, it's more catastrophic and more costly. So the fact that these roadways are deteriorating at such a rapid rate are only going to make those expenses more costly in the future. So
Right.
the sooner you deal with it, the better you as a town, deal with it, the better we're all going to be in the long run. It may be a bitter pill to swallow now, but it ought to be paying off dividends 15, 20, 30 years down the road and years thereafter. The street sweeping catch basin cleaning, we talked about compliance with NIPDES. That's simply a National Pollution Discharge Permit. The irony here is we're working on year 11 of the five-year permit. The state can't even get out of, I shouldn't say it that way. It's a very, very complicated permit. The wrangling going on all these years is the recognition that the more they want to regulate stormwater and the more they want to put these burdens and unfunded mandates upon towns, they're bankrupting towns. To that extent, the new NOI for the next round of NIPDES permitting is several years overdue. And we were at this point hoping to be drafting the next NOI, and they're not even through public comment period yet. We completed the 604B study grant. That's a federal EPA program administered through the DEP. That allowed us to go out and study, look at areas where we might want to do certain types of things to improve stormwater and water quality. That resulted in us targeting a couple of things, and we applied for a 319 grant, different program, but also EPA through DEP. That was to put in some BMPs, stormwater water quality work within the grassed island area of Wendell Park. We did not get that award on that grant application. One of the few we didn't get, but we didn't get that. But we also partnered up, you may remember, with NEPRA, and Neponset River Watershed Association, and with MAPC, and we partnered up with several other communities, 9 others, to look at a community innovation challenge grant. And you guys gave us authority to do that, and we also presented ourselves as a community who'd be interested in doing the stormwater financing pilot. Basically look at the community demographics and how might you finance stormwater. Doesn't obligate us to anything. We got that $130,000 grant.
Good.
So, in the fact that, and we have been named as that pilot community, so we are going to be getting some greater detail evaluation of what sort of tools might we want to put in our box to maybe create a stormwater utility or other ways of funding these types of, these mandates. Doesn't obligate us, it just gives us the ability to have someone else look at it, free of charge and give us some answers, and point us in a direction. Solid waste, another big item. We've looked at our quality assurance and our level of service, particularly this winter with some of the things that happened. We're looking at our compliance of, our people complying with the sticker program. Is the vendor complying with the regulations? Are they picking up what they should? Are they not picking up what they shouldn't, which is even more important? and so on. We're also gone out and done some spot neighborhood audits and looking at citizens' compliance. Are people actually trying to skirt the program or not? Where, as everybody, I think, I know you people know, people at home may not know, is we're in the final year of a 2-year extension that was granted to Waste Management for our collection and disposal of solid waste. That 2-year extension was based off an original 5-year contract that was bid 7 years ago. They had a contract with us prior to that, which was bid prior to that. With the onset of the deadline of the extension coming to an end, the deadline of looming, we reconvened we asked, and you guys did, reconvene the Solid Waste Advisory Committee, and we've met several times now. And I know it's the next agenda item, so this may...
We can incorporate the two of them.
If you don't mind,
Yeah,
this
that's
may
fine.
be exactly that. We discussed, as the committee, what the situation was, not necessarily claiming any dissatisfaction with the contractor or compliance with the contract or anything. What we looked at is the general condition of the market. We do have some assistance from a DEP consultant, which we got on a grant, who has the ability to look at what's happening regionally, and we felt that there was some real opportunity for competition, and as a committee decided we want to put this thing on the street and just not consider the option of going into another extension. We did that in a dual thrust approach. The first, what we did was we put an RFQ, request for qualifications, out, inviting those people who run disposal facilities, landfills, incinerators, and transfer stations, to submit proposals to us. So at least we would have a fallback position of what is solid waste disposal really worth, and if we were to put it on the market, what sort of cost are we looking at? And we got some good response. We got 3 proposals back, which proposed 5 different alternatives. 2 of them proposed a couple of different alternatives. And we feel that we have a very good fallback position to consider that if, for some reason, negotiations on the second piece, which I'm about to talk to, should blow up, at least we know we've got a disposal price that we could probably negotiate that's very amiable to the community's position for funding it. The second thrust we were taking, in addition to disposal, was, okay, let's look at the contract for what we do now, which is collection and disposal of trash and recyclables and everything in between. We put an RFP on the street. That RFP is due back on April 11th next week. Week and a half. That one basically asks the solid waste industry to give us proposals for those types of things that we already do. We did break it out in a couple of options. One option is, oh, by the way, we want you to collect it and bring it to your facility, or a facility that you have a contract with, or alternatively, to collect it and bring it to a facility that we tell you who, and we named, without committing ourselves, we named the Dedham Transfer Station, which was the most advantageous under the RFQ process. So we're already telling them, look, if you don't want to go out scurrying around down South Shore, you might just consider Dedham. So we point them in the right direction. But also, we want you to give us other alternatives as well. And then the last option was, we might consider, we can't do it for solid waste, but we might consider using those large wheeled toters to automate our single-stream recycling. And if we were to do that, what savings would we get in your collection costs? Because there is savings, because it's more efficient, it's faster, and it's less liability with back strains and whatnot. And for them to provide the toters, and what that cost would be if they were to provide toters. So we've pretty much broken that out to get a good cross-section. So we next meet on the
17th?
17th, the Thursday, the Thursday the 17th.
Why is that not possible with solid waste?
Sticker program.
There's no way of...
You turn your sticker program upside down. You would literally go from a per sticker to a per container. We have a 32-gallon limit now, which is 1 sticker. Every bag thereafter is an additional sticker. If you go to 65-gallon toters, you'd have to double your sticker prices to $6. Then you've got the question of, well, I'm a single
use
person,
that much.
fixed income household. I only put out trash once a month. Now I got a toter, I'm going to put it out once every 6 months. Now, how's that fair? So it's unwieldy, it doesn't work. The way we're structured as a pay-as-you-throw community, it does not work for solid waste, without completely revamping it. And I remember 3 years ago, I was looking to change the rectangular blue sticker to a tamper-proof oblong red sticker, and I think it took us 4 selectmen meetings to get it approved. So I don't think we could possibly get solid waste changed to such a great degree. And in the end, I don't think we get any greater advantage on it. So this, we're looking at a 5-year proposal that gives us the opportunity, that that's where the town wants to go, gives us 5 years to really think that through and make those changes for a future contract. So while all of this RFP, RFQ stuff's been going on, we've also taken the advantage of the other part of what our committee is charged with, and that's looking at what we're doing with recycling. 2 years ago, we looked at what we do with solid waste, and this time around, we're looking at what we do with recycling. We got that technical assistance grant from the state, who they came in and evaluate what we do program-wise, both curbside as well as at our recycle center, and looked at things that, what alternatives might we consider? What would we do differently? What would we eliminate? What would we add? What we would consider? We've received that report formally. Our consultant, who attends our solid waste advisory committees as an ex officio member, has made that presentation at our last meeting. And we've also heard presentations from folks who are involved with a couple initiatives that were included in that recommendation, which is looking at textile recycling, which I think you've all heard something about in the past. And we've looked at the viability of taking food waste products out of the waste stream, reducing your tonnage cost, and do it on an institutional basis where, food service area where they could theoretically segregate that, reduce their tonnage, and put it into a much cheaper collection, because that material is then used for composting and biomass for energy production and feedstock. So we're hearing those things out. So as we're awaiting these other proposals to come in, we're still going about our business, doing other work. And once the contract is in place, once we make a recommendation of what we're going to do with solid waste, I suspect the Solid Waste Advisory Committee should stay in place to look to those various recycling initiatives moving through.
Brought back memories of the old garbage.
I know I'm old when my staff says, "What are you talking about?" The more things change, the more they say the same. I talk about the swill bucket when I was a kid. You went down the back step and stepped on the pedal, and there's your food waste, and the piggery came by once or twice a week, and
That's right, yeah.
and the kids are saying, "What?"
I think it used to be Holbrook Farms around here.
I'm saying
way
what?
back when.
Well, maybe not in Europe, but this is a big part of Massachusetts culture. When you were a young man, to my age, when I was a kid, you used to fight with your brothers to bring it out to the swill bucket, because you never know what animal you're going to encounter out there.
Has 4 wheels and flies, a garbage truck.
Well, Mr. Chairman, as you know, I'm the board's representative on the Solid Waste Advisory Committee, along with the town administrator, and this has actually been a pretty interesting committee to serve on. I've been finding this, and I do want to recognize, we have a resident, her name is Lee Pukel. She's the one who brought the textile recycling to the committee. She came in and met with us with a vendor who specializes in this area, and it's something that we might want to see. We're going to reach out to the schools to see whether there might be a way to work with them on this, maybe the PTOs. It might be a little bit of a fundraiser at the same time as helping remove some of this from the waste stream. But Joe and John Thompson have done a lot of work on this RFP and RFQ process. And not only a lot of work, but good work on this. And we have a lot of interest out there. And I think the committee has been very happy with where we're at and with the interest that's been generated.
And seriously, anything we can do to reduce tonnage will not only benefit the residents, it benefits the town as well.
Yes.
If we keep focusing on water, sewer, and solid waste the way we have, we're going to be okay, because there's a lot of money out there in those 3 entities. Everything else we do in public works are valuable and very important, but those three things are costly. And I think, we're making great efforts to put the focus there, to try to contain those costs as best we can. Okay. And actually, I just want to expand upon what Katie just said. Kudos really goes out to John Thompson. He was really the trash czar for full 2 weeks. He just hung it down in his office, because the committee basically threw a curveball at him and said, "Yeah, we're going to put this up to bid. You got 2 weeks to do this one, you got 2 weeks to do that one." And John literally had to go into the office and close his doors and he came up for a breath every now and then and came out and asked me a couple of questions, but really it was yeoman's work on his part to really move. It would not have been on the street if it was not for his work.
So Joe, the RFPs are due back on the 11th?
The 11th. for
And
the-
then when will you make a decision?
We're going to be convening on the 17th to discuss those RFPs. I suspect that it's going to be pretty obvious, I think, of who the shortlist should be. We will probably engage in negotiations. Remember, this is solid waste. You start a process, doesn't mean you have to follow a particular process. It's exempt from 30B. What you
Right.
want to do is you want to put it out there to see what the competition looks like, and then to form a strategy of negotiations to sit down and get the best deal for the community. You know, the fit with the vendor, all of it has to come into play.
And it'll be a 5-year contract?
It'll be a 5-year contract.
And Sustainable Milton has also been represented on this committee. And I think they were the ones who generated the idea of the food waste recycling, or at least have been advocating for it, if not generated the idea of it. But yeah, there's been, like I said, a lot of interesting discussions at this committee, including recycling of other medical products and different things that we can look at and would impact other boards as well as the DPW and this board.
A lot of this is not anecdotal. Our technical assistance grant and the person who's representing us, Kathy Mirza, she's a wealth of information, as I say. She works on a regional basis. She has statistics to back all of this stuff up. You know, when we talk about diversion of tonnage of textiles, you know, she can say that, you know, 30% of the average waste stream is textiles, and you can intercept 6% of those. I mean, it's based on some real numbers that you could theoretically pull out. So we're not dealing with pie-in-the-sky stuff. We're dealing with something that's pretty accurate. So, and I've taken a lot of time. The rest of it is, you know, basically it's a recap of what I had in the previous quarterly report. There's some issues at Central Maintenance. We want to reap control over our fleet creep, you know, other departments getting new vehicles and increasing their fleet size, and what that does to my departments as I maintain their vehicles, it only increases my cost without any of my control. So we need to really understand that as a community of, you know, it's fine if another department needs something, but with the purchase of that vehicle, there ought to be some consideration of adding something to the central maintenance budget to fund that future maintenance for that vehicle, which now isn't happening. Our fuel dispensing system, for example, you go to the gas station, you buy gas, it's a lot more money than what we pay for gas on a wholesale sense. Well, the gas station's paying for his real estate, he's paying for his insurance, he's paying for his inspections, he's paying for his equipment and his repair of his equipment. Well, I'm paying for the equipment, DPW, Central Maintenance, is paying for its dispensing product and its testing and its insurance piece of it, and we're paying for all those things, yet that's not built into the fuel costs that we charge to the other departments. So the more these fleets increase and the more gas they're using, it only increases my costs on that front as well. So those are big things that I think are looming out there, that I think it almost takes, you know, a discussion of the players probably at a core team meeting to really maybe decide whether we want to move forward and give some sort of timetable in which to do that. It's nothing that rises to the level of you know, public hearing or a town meeting, for that matter.
That's all you're really
policy.
You're
It's
just
really
talking
policy.
interdepartmental charges, but
Exactly.
same dollars are involved. It's just how people think about and thinking about whether they want to buy that next thing or spend that next thing.
In the engineering department, they're the brains behind the brawn of our operation, and the brawn of our operation does all the hard work on a day-to-day basis, and these guys do all the planning and thinking and committing it to estimates and paper. We got some projects out there that are happening on an individual basis. We have some things that are happening on a recurring basis. We're always supporting our projects. We're always doing permit administration and regulation review. We've got some individual projects that are unique, such as our work order tracking system, which is a contract that we're administering now. It's not even beta phase yet, but it's being implemented. We have the retroreflectivity, which is going out and looking at the ability of our signs to show up at night and how they meet the federal regulation. And that's something that was funded through one-time monies last year. We have our dam safety improvements, which as soon as this water recedes, is something we're looking to get on the street for work this summer, early fall, you know, to make repairs to the Pine Street Brook Dam, which is on Holland Street. People may not even realize they're driving over a dam when they go over that hill. That's a major Army Corps of Engineer flood control feature, which has saved most of your old neighborhood, which used to get wiped out all the time. East Milton Square engineering RFP has been done. The engineering work that's an interesting setup, because it's federal money and the engineering piece of it is actually through a state contract, but yet we have input in it. So it's really like out of our realm, but we still involve ourselves with various design concepts and ideas and trying to move forward with the town's ideas. Of course, we got the 40B burdens in all of our input that, on these letters that we're putting in.
Yep.
And so on and so forth. And that's a lot of information.
Well, it's a very good report, Joe.
Excellent report. I think we should bring you in once a month.
I was thinking once a year.
Thanks, Joe.
Very good.
Book done.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you. And did I satisfy the other agenda item on the solid waste
Yes.
advisory committee? Very good.
You good with it, Katie?
Yes.
Okay. All right, thanks again. Now we'll move on to the Board of Park Commissioners. I'd like to invite them up to the table to discuss the, I guess, the acquisition or the foreclosure of a piece of land on Herrick Drive that the town took through a tax title. And I guess the Board of Park Commissioners are here to give us a presentation on what you think could go there. Welcome, gentlemen.
Tom McCarthy, Park Commissioner.
Stephen Affonato, Park Commissioner.
Not so
Evening,
much
ladies
a
and gents.
presentation, more of a, I guess this is in the beginning
the
stages.
discussion.
Because I've talked to Dennis briefly and Jim McAuliffe briefly about the acquisition of this land.
Thanks, Bill.
Good to see you. Oh, where'd you come from? Yep. So the one we're talking about, I believe, if I'm correct, Bill will correct me if I'm wrong, 1736?
If you go to the one I just gave you.
Yep. Yeah, so 1736, okay. So that's the piece we're looking at for a future possible practice field, either a rectangle or maybe even diamond, depending on what we do at other sites. So if we were to acquire this land, that would give us the opportunity to try to seek funding to get a field built there. So again, we're at the beginning
Right,
stages
and
here.
we really just took this up at our last meeting, which was 2 weeks ago.
Correct.
Would this be like soccer fields or baseball fields or what?
Like I said, we're up in
You
the
don't
air
know
on
yet?
that
Up in the
because we have some other stuff in the oven. So if we build a rectangle someplace else, this may be a diamond.
Is this a couple of acres, Tom?
Technically, it's 4.35, but I think that's because, if you look at it, there's this long stretch
Yeah, you
here
have that
that adds to the...
elongated piece that actually goes all the way back to the Glover parking lot, right?
Correct.
So you could actually walk from the Glover down to this?
Right, and that's part of the plan.
And we have generally discussed that as far as impact in the neighborhood and everything, that might alleviate negative impact as far as,
Steve, is that a stream on the right-hand side there?
that's the
Yeah,
brook.
that's the brook.
That's the brook, okay.
It runs right through the Glover parking lot. and
Yep.
Comes, through Turner's Pond and everything.
Right, so
That would be the southern edge of Turner's Pond.
the thought would be to probably connect it to the
Eastern
Turner's
edge, western
path.
edge.
And you wouldn't have any use for the other two lots there, no?
Well, we didn't want to be greedy.
Yeah, I was just asking, parking, or where would you
Part
park?
of,
We had heard some residents in the area may be interested.
Right, maybe Bill can...
Bill Clark is our planning director, yeah.
part of the issue on this particular site is that these are, where it says house number 14 there, it goes 15, 16, 17, and the house on the corner of School Street would be lot 18. Lot 15 and 16 have a structure built in them to deal with floodplain issues for the development. There is the potential to move that. There's a dugout area in lot number 16 that could actually be shifted some to address the other potential drainage issues in here. There are drainage easements across part of the property, and there are sidewalk easements that were built into the subdivision for Herrick Drive, which was called Newell Estates.
So it's about 4 acres. Is that square feet, 211,000 square feet, Bill?
Yes. I do know that one of the neighbors has expressed interest in buying Lot 15. He's talked about buying 15, 16, and 17, but the initial discussion started with Lot 15.
Which is one of the reasons why we were just interested in,
Yeah, which one is 15,
Hey,
Bill?
look at this
15
little-
is the one right beside
might want to
the house with
Bathroom
the
is
pond in the back.
15, 16,
go with this
17.
number.
That's 15. All right, it says number 34 on the page that you're looking at.
Yeah, 34,
34,
that's...
35, and 36?
Yep.
Okay.
Okay.
So the park department's thought was, we were interested in this parcel, and if the town could create some revenue with the other two parcels.
So you're in parcel number 36?
Yes.
Yeah. And there is a major shortage of playing fields
That is for sure.
in the town.
We're seeking every piece of grass we can
So we're
get.
just, I mean, we're seeking anything from, as Tom said, a practice, practice-type facility or,
Right.
younger children type, not necessarily regulation if we can.
Right, I don't think we could fit a full regulation
Right.
rectangle field here, soccer, lacrosse.
Soccer, lacrosse, football.
You could probably put the two kids' ones on it.
Right, exactly. It's a perfect
Yeah.
place for practice, which is really what we're looking for.
Kids under 10 or something like that.
Yeah. Or practice for anybody, really, that they don't need a full reg field.
And this would still permit Jeff Stone's idea to coexist?
Yes. When this development was put in, part of the sidewalk easement went across the McNaughts land. The McNaughts are at 14, Eric. Doing something like this could remove the easement from the McNaughts property and put it out onto these 3 lots. The 3 lots got taken by tax title by the town treasurer back in February. Usually the first people to look at the property is departments in the town. Is one of the departments.
Tom referenced Jeff Stone's idea. Let's just mention what that is. That came up at the master plan meeting the
Sure.
other night. Bill, you could maybe talk about that.
There's been a proposal that was put forth a couple of years ago that would connect all the ponds and streams in town.
For a walking trail?
We're like
Yes, so it would start at Pope's Pond, it would walk down, walk around Pope's Pond. There's a pathway that runs along on both sides of Pine Tree Brook. It runs down to the Parkway. Again, you can walk on both sides, going down to, just before you get to Thatcher Street where there's a turn, it stops, but you'd have to cross. There's some street work in there. When you get down to Central Ave, we're looking at starting it at Central, running along the brook again. And right now, if you go to Turner's Pond, there is a path on the westerly side of the pond that runs down to Glover School. And if you started at Glover School at the bridge right there, that brings you into that very long skinny piece that belongs to Lot 36 here.
Mm-hmm.
It would walk right along the brook itself. So it opens it up. You'd get to see the brook, you get more one-on-one with the brook. It could be a walking, biking path, and an access point to get to the school without having to walk on Canton Ave or Herrick Drive.
And it gives us a place for kids to play after school.
Yep.
Right,
One
the
place
parking could
at the
be,
park.
the parking could happen at the Turner's Pond parking
That's true.
by the Glover School.
Which is actually owned by the park department.
Always.
That's not a huge, it's not a huge
No, but it's,
area,
right.
but
Yeah, right, another parking lot.
But it just alleviates the concern for, people.
you'd have to
Being concerned
exit
with parking.
Turner's Pond to access this, right? So come out that gate on Brook Road,
Go to the smaller one, you see it.
the smaller, yeah.
Yep. This is Park here. This is, part of this is Park, the rest is school. This is where they did the parking for
that
the movie.
Right.
comments from the board?
No?
I mean, our biggest thing is we're just looking for ways to alleviate, and you all know,
That is parking.
Shortage.
the shortage of field space that we deal with. And more programs are starting up. I mean, every other meeting, we have a new
Yep.
type
Rugby
of
is
athletic group coming in to try to,
Would the
get
thought
some
process
space.
be a land swap, or would it be just a grant, or you haven't really got that far yet?
We haven't been in discussions at that
Yeah, no,
length
we
yet.
haven't thought of a swap, because we don't know what we have to swap.
I know the
Yeah.
treasurer probably talked with all of us individually about this property that he had taken by tax title, so it's fairly new, but it's good that we're at least having an initial conversation
Yeah.
about it to see what your interests are.
And we have reserved some time in executive session to talk about it if this has a hearing.
Strategy,
Yeah,
yes.
if you want to talk about the strategy. Well, personally, I like the idea. I mean, I'm a former coach and everything. I'm all in favor of kids' sports and fields. And one question, Bill, are these buildable lots?
There is the potential that you could do something if you combine them all. Other than that, no. The original subdivision plan wanted to have Lot 17, number 36 on this page, have a conservation restriction put on it. Only the conservation restriction was never signed. It was never recorded. So therefore, it could be open to whatever.
So why is it not a buildable lot?
The issues on the one behind it are floodplain, and the floodplain kind of stretches over to Lot 17.
Okay.
We own the lot on the other side of the stream, which is 19 on these pages. If you were going to build, that's probably the spot you would build on.
Which one is it, Bill?
Number 19 on School Street.
Oh, over here, okay.
Need to make these numbers bigger.
You can almost make that parking and put a bridge across the brook.
Yeah, we're trying to stay away from parking in the neighborhood.
I mean,
That's
that,
why we're thinking the Turner's parking lot. It's already there, we don't have to
Yep.
shock people with a parking lot.
the big parking lot that's in front of Glover's School now, you've already got the big parking lot. It's already there, it's already paved.
And then a nice
It
walk
is.
down to the
Right.
field.
Just walk right down.
Down to the pitch, right? That's if we get the rectangle.
Okay. Well, thanks a lot, guys.
Thank you for your
We'll
time.
discuss this, yeah.
Yeah.
This is just the
Sorry we
beginning,
kept
I'm
you waiting
sure.
for a while.
That's okay. I'll get Joe.
Thanks, Tom and Stephen. We appreciate it.
Thanks, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
You too.
Das is here somewhere. Okay, we have, next on the agenda is number 9, one-day liquor license for the Fruit Center. We have a motion.
I'll move that we approve a one-day liquor license to the Fruit Center Marketplace for a wine dinner that is scheduled for April 11th, and a beer dinner that is scheduled for April 25th at 10 Bassett Street.
Second.
The motion made and seconded. Any further comment? I have a question. Why do we do this every month? Can we not approve a year's worth? Or?
These are one-day liquor licenses, so you have to approve them one at a time when the events are coming up.
Does
Does not
if
have
he
a-
knew in advance, could we do it in advance? What dates?
Yes, you could do them all at one time, but I don't think he does know in advance. So as they come up, we just approve them.
Okay. All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. Number 10, National Little League Opening Day.
Sign of spring.
I think they asked for a rain date, which is not in the draft of the motion, but their letter asks for a rain date of April 13th.
April
So we should
13th.
probably vote both in
Okay.
case it's needed.
All right, I'll move to approve the use of the town green and streets and ways for Milton National Little League opening day ceremonies that will take place on Saturday, April 12th, with a rain day of Sunday, April 13th, 2014, contingent upon approval by the police chief.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any further comment? All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. Number 11, boards and committees reappointments. We have a bunch of them.
First one,
I'll
second.
move that we approve the appointment of Diane Gore as the privacy officer to serve through February 2015.
Second.
Motion was made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous.
I'll move to approve the appointments of Paul Hopkins and Walter Buddy McDermott Jr. to Radio Amateur Communications Emergency Systems races to serve through February 2015.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any comment? All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous.
I'll move that we approve the appointment of Branch B. Lane as the tree warden to serve through March 2015.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I skipped one.
Yeah, I know, I get it. I'll move to approve the appointments of Edward Duffy and Kurt Frazier to the Telecommunications Design Review Committee to serve through February 2015.
Second.
That motion was made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Unanimous.
I'll move that we approve the appointments of Ellen Ann Salone, Brian Furs, Cindy Christensen, Brian Bean, April Lamoureux, Jean Schmidt, Nancy O'Sullivan, Mark Alba, and William Clark to the Granite Ave Study Committee to serve through March 2015.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any comment? Are we getting this committee in anytime soon to?
They're expecting to file a report shortly,
I was
but
thinking the same thing. Yeah.
their terms all expired at this time, so we're extending them for a year. I did ask that same question earlier today,
Yes.
but
Okay.
they probably will not be serving this long.
All right. Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous.
Okay, I will move to approve the appointments of John Zekowitz, Catherine Dunphy, Michael Wilcox, Everett Haywood, Ruth Hayden, and Chad Luden to Milton Village Central Avenue Revitalization Committee to serve through April 2015.
Second.
Motion was made and seconded. Any further comment? All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. Number 12, temporary signage request.
I will move that we approve a temporary signage request from the Sustainable Milton Committee announcing the Green Homes event that is scheduled to take place at Cunningham Hall on April 26, 2014, with signs to be placed at the following locations: A-frames at Brook Road near Pierce Middle School, the corner of Randolph Avenue and Reedsdale Road, Brook Road and Adams Street, Canton Ave and Blue Hills Parkway, and banners at Pierce Middle School and the library.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any further comment? All in favor?
Aye.
It's unanimous. And now number 13, town administrators report.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to inform the board that the Veterans Service Department reapproved our Veterans Service District with the town of Randolph for another 2 years.
Great.
So we will again have those shared services between the two towns of the Veterans Service agent, Michael Cunningham. And it's a real win-win for the town to have this
One of those
shared.
odd laws that requires generally a veteran service agent for every community, not a shared one necessarily. And that was always a stumbling block because we really didn't have enough for it to be a full-time position. So, and Michael's certainly worked out tremendously.
It's been great. It really has. So we're approved again for another 2 years, so February of 2016.
Okay, good. That's it?
That's it.
Okay. I just have one thing to mention for the chairman's report. Katie and I attended the, help me out here, Katie, the Eagle Scouts
Court of Honor.
Court of Honor at the Cunningham Hall on Saturday. And I had a fabulous time.
I've been many times.
I had never
good
been
take,
before,
yeah.
and it was
Yeah.
quite educational.
Those kids do so much work to make it to that level. It's amazing.
They were very passionate about their work. It was kind of emotional, the speeches. You had 3 19 and 20-year-old boys were inducted into or whatever they were.
Yeah.
Yes, and that's the highest rank that
the
the
highest
Boy
rank,
Scouts
yeah.
give. It's
Yep.
quite an honor, I know, to get that
Certainly is.
ranking.
Certainly is.
It was a great event.
We had a great event, yeah. I'm sorry?
Bill Clark is an Eagle
Is he really?
Easy, yeah.
I made it to first class, and that was about it.
That's my chairman's report. Are we,
Should we go to Governor Stoughton first?
we should.
Before we go to executive session? Does that
Do
make
we
more
need to go to executive session as well?
Yes.
Yeah, we do have one thing to
Okay.
talk about.
Will we go to Governor Stoughton
Does that make more sense?
Or do you want to go right into
Yeah,
executive?
Waiting on executive session?
Just Town Council Andy Waugh is waiting for executive session.
He's here.
He's out in the hallway.
'Cause otherwise, we're going to have to throw people out and let them back in for,
Yeah, I know.
I think we just get the Governor Stoughton over with and go right into executive session.
He's not here yet, so.
So we'll do Governor
Go to
Stoughton.
Governor Stoughton.
All right.
so I guess.
Do we adjourn
We'll
from the
recess?
Yeah,
Yeah,
what?
We could recess? the meeting?
recess. Yeah.
Recess to general meeting, go right into the meeting of the, convene the meeting of the trustees of the Governor Stoughton Fund.
I'll second that motion. Yes.
Yes.
Sure. Okay.
Okay. We're going to meet with Linda.
Where are we procedurally at?
I second the motion, but we haven't voted yet.
So it's not executive session, so
Yeah,
is it a roll call?
no, it's not a roll call. I think
No.
you just have to vote to,
So second, I'll second your motion.
okay.
Motion taken, seconded. We're in the meeting of the trustees of the Governor Stoughton Fund right now.
So now you have to open the meeting with Governor Stoughton, right?
Open the meeting of the
Yeah, open the I will at this time open the meeting of the Governor Stoughton Fund.
Open.
Okay, so is Bill Clark here?
Just arrived.
So we're going to talk about
The subdivision
subdivision
plan
plan
from Pulte Homes,
and the animal
while we're waiting for
shelter laws to.
Bill Clark to... Hello, Bill. Pulte, preliminary subdivision plans. Can you bring us up to date with that, Bill?
What you have before you is a application for submittal to the planning board for preliminary subdivision. Plans are as of 3/17/2014, and the plan is after you sign, after you sign the application above the Pulte representative, they'll be given to the planning board. They'll receive them on the 9th of April, and all it is doing is freezing the zoning to what it is right now. When you file for a definitive subdivision, the first step is a preliminary subdivision. When you file for a cluster, you're filing as if you were filing for a definitive subdivision.
So they can figure out the,
Yes, so all you're doing at this point is locking them in that this is their initial filing. There's no discussion that will be taken up, it's just locking in the current zoning with this application. Next step will be give it to the planning board, they just accept it, they continue till, whenever the next application comes in. There will be no discussion to what the plan is.
okay. So
Pretty simple.
And this is basically
This is just a
the same-
three-lot subdivision. The preliminary.
Okay, when you say 3 lots,
Can you explain this?
There's three lots on there. If you go to, I believe it's page 3. Oh, yeah, page 3. There's, if we do it this way, there is 1 lot, 2 lot, 3 lot.
okay, what's the significance of the 3 lots?
It's just it's multiple lots off of the initial road. The initial road, and it comes in like this. The initial road is only, it's a stub just showing access to the property.
Okay.
The access is going to be coming in off of Unquity Road. The road is, if the new cluster bylaw gets passed, it allows the planning board the ability to let the road go a little bit longer than a normal subdivision could allow
This is under the new cluster?
on the new cluster.
Yes, okay, I understand that.
there would be one main road, there'll be one stub road, and somewhere between the two, there is a connection that is for emergency purposes out of the site, which would go to Governor Stoughton Lane. But that, at that fire gate, on the back side of that would be the men's house, which has the potential to be the 2 affordable units that we've talked about having created. And because they are physically adjacent and their boundaries touch, they would be allowable under the new cluster.
I'm a little confused. I can see the road coming off Unquity, and is that little thing beyond the cul-de-sac there, the extension of it?
It actually is that's the utilities.
Okay, that's the utility, okay.
That goes out to Countryside Lane then?
Yes,
Yes.
okay. So when you're talking about extending it, where would?
Well, the road would come in and it would actually go, it'd loop through here, it would come up in here. This would be the road, but it would follow, it actually follows, it has to go up this way
Okay.
in order to achieve the boundary that is required across the back of these
Is
properties.
this that 100-foot buffer that
Yes.
we're talking about? Okay.
Bill, why wouldn't they put the road that they're seeking into this plan, into the?
Because they can't, because it's not a new, it doesn't meet the current zoning.
So how long is this road, the 500 foot?
No, this is only 200 and change.
What's the current
It's
zoning?
either 200 or 300 feet,
What's the current zoning for the length of the road?
500 feet,
500.
For a dead end?
yes.
Yeah.
Bill, you said 3 lots? No, I only see 2 on page 3, but no, on our application for the preliminary subdivision, it says number of proposed lots, 2.
2.
So where is the third
Yes,
lot?
no, there's only 2.
So the other one's just the buffer zone?
The other one is eventually going to be the lot at the top.
Oh, okay.
They're going to take the 4-acre
So this
parcel
is,
up in the top and come across.
So is that lot number 3, yeah?
That would be lot number 3. There's only 2 on here right now. It's 1, 2.
All right, so there's 2 lots they'll be building.
There's 2 lots, but they eventually have to carve out our 4 acres.
I see.
Our 4 acres is going to come out at somewhere up in this corner here.
I got you, okay.
so the application that we, as the owner, along with the applicant, would be submitting is regarding dividing it into 2
Want
lots.
a copy? Yeah.
Bill, is that correct? So our application to the planning board as owner, along with the developer, we're asking that the property be divided into 2 lots.
Yes, this is only for the preliminary. If you choose not to, the preliminary doesn't get filed with the registry. It's just that it's a preliminary. The definitive would get done with the registry.
It looks like we have 6 or 7 pages here.
What you have is the grading, you have the wetlands page, you have the lots, you have the cover page. That's wetlands.
The one before it is
Also
utilities.
The other's topography, and that's a,
This is utilities.
yep, showing coming in here.
So is Lot 1 somewhat the town's lot, and Lot
It encompasses the
encompasses
town's
the town's lot, but it's more than that? Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
This is just to,
Basically just one side of the road or the other?
yes, it's just to freeze the zoning at this point.
Right. Do you need a motion on this one?
I need you to, yes, and then sign the original, which, the original was here. Paula has it. I knew that.
Well, I'll make a motion to approve the preliminary subdivision plan of the town farm from Pulte Homes of New England LLC, for submission to the planning board, is that?
Why don't we use the title?
The application for approval of preliminary subdivision plan dated March 18, 2014, for submission to the planning board of the town of Milton.
Second.
Motion was made and seconded. Any further discussion?
Yes. Yes.
I don't think I have any, do you have any further discussion?
No, I think Bill has explained that this is very limited. All we're doing is freezing the
We're
current
just
zoning.
freezing the
in place.
zoning, and because the trustees are the owner of the land, you're assigning as owner of the land.
I did have another question, but it doesn't really relate to the preliminary subdivision, but I'll go on about this first.
Okay, so all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
It's unanimous.
Bill, as long as we're talking about Governor Stoughton, because questions have come up with respect to the purchase and sale agreement, the tagging of trees, and inspection, and as to who's responsible for ensuring, I guess, during the 60, which is now expanded to 120-day period, which...
Due diligence.
Due diligence period, there was to be no removal of trees without approval of the town, I guess it is.
Yes.
And do we actually have a procedure for that, to ensure that that does in fact happen, the tagging and everything else? I know the Conservation Commission heard it, and heard the whole drilling of
They're
the boring
going,
plan.
they have a site walk there, I believe it's this coming Saturday morning. At which point they will go and look and see where the geotech boring sites will be. I don't believe that they have a wetland plan with a request for delineation yet. I know that Pulte is putting together an ANRAD, a abbreviated notice of resource delineation, that they want to go back and talk to the Concom about. But they're doing that afterwards. They need to do the geotech boring first.
Yep.
Yeah, geotech.
Right. And I guess the
The
purchase
tree
and sale
part-
agreement gives them the permission to do that anyways, but it
The only
did
thing
restrict
they've
the
done
removal
to
of trees,
date,
that's all.
they have made sure that they've called every time to date. They brought in the excavator, they called us ahead of time and said, this is what we need to do. They needed to clear a couple of paths so that they could do their drilling at certain areas. I went with them, looked at all the sites, we saw where they were going to put it. I think the biggest tree that they cut was about that big. There was one about that big that they knocked down, but it was a pine tree that was already dead, so that when they hit it, it just went over. It was either that or it would have come down in the storm over the weekend. It was that dead.
And the only thing I'm wondering is, because obviously, as trustees to Governor Stoughton or as selectmen, we can't be going around making sure that the purchase and sale agreement is enforced. Should we designate somebody with that responsibility or not? Just to make sure that, and the logical person would obviously be.
And I've been the one who's going up and, they
Right.
have
I mean,
the,
but should we formally do
We
that?
designate.
Yeah, designate Bill.
Pulte has appointed Mark Camo, one of their lawyers, as their point person. I talk to Mark all the time before he goes there, before he brings somebody out there. So I'm kind of doing what you're
So asking anyways, yeah,
already.
I guess I'm asking just to formalize it, I guess, more than anything else.
I don't know. I mean, there's a purchase and sales, they should abide by the rules. If the only thing that they're doing outside of the guidelines is cutting trees down, let them know.
But what trees are they cutting? I think that's more their issue. I think it's a protection piece for you in that before they take something down, they have to come back and tell us. They have to tell me, I have to go look at the specific tree before they go and do
I think
that.
that's the way it should be, Tom. At your
Well,
suggestion.
what he's
I agree,
saying.
yeah.
Yes.
Have them notify Bill, go up, take a look at it, approve it,
Yeah.
you know?
That is a formal motion, or?
Well, I think if Bill's already doing it, that's probably sufficient. It's not actually on the agenda, so maybe we
Right,
could
that's
put it
true.
on at a future agenda rather
Yeah.
than
Okay,
acting on a motion today.
Just authorize you to
Okay.
make the decision, yep.
that's fine.
All right, thanks, Bill.
Okay.
We're still in the Governor Stoughton Fund, so we'll bring up Linda Palmer from the Animal Shelter. Hi, Linda.
I had thought this was going to go on much later, so I was going to ask you to take us off the agenda, but thank you for moving it up.
No problem.
No problem.
I'm here tonight to present a strategy. Yes?
No, I'm just saying, if you could introduce yourself for the
Oh,
public.
I'm sorry, I'm Linda
That's all right.
Palmer. I'm president of the Milton Animal League, Precinct 1. And the Milton Animal League wants to pursue a two-pronged approach to the development of the new animal shelter. Since we have not received a firm answer about the Randolph Avenue site, the access road site, we'd like to ask the trustees to issue an RFP for an acre of land at the town farm that we would bid on. And the first site that comes through is where we'll build. We're getting very frustrated by the lack of progress on the Randolph Avenue site, so we want to try to pursue two sites, and so that we'll have some option sometime soon.
I think that the Randolph Ave site may be closer than what you think, but, we're ready to
We just haven't
hold.
heard anything since.
And it's because one 40B after another, it's
Yeah.
because there has been so much stuff on our plate that to think about any of this stuff is difficult. It really is. I mean, it's been.
Although it's all we think
It's
about.
been, I understand that,
Said, yeah.
but we've been, let's rush to the next fire and rush to the next fire, because that's all it's been lately.
But I
We've been
think-
pushing behind the scenes to try and bring this to a resolution in terms of the Randolph Ave site, and I know you've reached out to a few of the neighbors,
neighbors,
and
yes.
we're still waiting to hear back on that, but I can't speak for the rest of the, and I'm not speaking for the Governor Stoughton board, I guess we're speaking for the Selectmen board right now, that I think we're ready pretty soon to at least have discussions about that site.
We've had 2 public meetings with the neighbors. I didn't know that you were reaching out to some of the neighbors there, so I wasn't aware of that, but to some of the ones who came and voiced some concerns at one of the public meetings.
One of the neighbors, I was reaching out to him to make sure that he had no concerns with the project. He wasn't at the second neighborhood meeting, so I was reaching out to him to see if he had any concerns, since he wasn't available for the second meeting. But the problem with the Governor Stoughton property is that it's my understanding that until Pulte identifies what 30 acres they need, you really can't, you as the trustees of the Governor Stoughton cannot do anything with any of the acreage up there.
Well, I think what Linda's asking is, could we put out a generic, not identifying a specific parcel, but saying that in all likelihood there will be 1 acre there someplace? And we hope that's a true statement, but we don't even know that.
But I think you would have to follow the same process.
We would have to
through
still
the
file a complaint.
You have to
yes.
file the complaint first and get approval to be able to even sell off a parcel
Yes.
for the purposes of housing the animal shelter.
Right. I mean, I think the process that we did before, and I don't know whether we need a public hearing process before we do that or not. I'm not sure. I mean, it is the Governor Stoughton land, and it certainly still is by the will to be used for the benefit of the poor. So, I mean, it was a long process on the balance of the land to sell it in terms of many, many public hearings and committees and everything else. I mean, I don't know to what degree we'd have to institute more public hearings to do anything like that, but
We've also been talking
Secret
to the
town
Attorney General's office, to Joanna Soros, and
Yep.
We understand we'd have to pay fair market value.
Yep. You have to file a complaint,
File the complaint.
have to go through the Attorney General, through the probate court.
And it was our understanding from talking to them that it would not take.
But probably wouldn't take quite as long as the Pulte thing, yes.
Exactly.
Yes.
So what kind of time are we looking at? Soon is kind of vague and nebulous.
In terms of the Randolph Ave site?
In terms of basically what Linda said, is that we're happy with either site. What we're hoping for is, number one, a specific date or a specific little time frame by which we can expect some sort of resolution, because as you know, this has been going on in excess of 12 years.
I think that's a reasonable request.
We could put it on your April 22nd agenda for discussion.
April 26th, for which, which
Randolph
hat
Ave.
would
Board
you
of
be wearing?
Selectmen
Okay.
at the Randolph Ave.
And
That would be a Board of Selectmen discussion.
Yeah,
Correct.
would a
we should seriously
decision
consider
be
it.
made at that point, Anne Marie?
Well, I think that the board has not met as a board together to properly vet it out, so I don't know if a decision would be made that night or maybe at the next Board of Selectmen meeting, which would then be the 28th or May 1st.
But to
Do
try,
have-
to try and get something, a decision made by the Board of Selectmen by the end of the month or thereabouts.
Yes,
do it.
or yeah, end of the month, maybe middle of May.
Am I wrong? I was under the belief that the land on Randolph Avenue was far enough away from abutters that you guys could actually do something with it without getting the approval of the neighbor. I'm not trying to say we
We
don't.
can, yeah, we can.
Yeah.
As of right, yes, it'd be a municipal building in a residential rezoned area, which is permissible under the zoning. I believe that it would just have to go through planning board for, the same way that the
I
temple.
understand that. I mean, we've been tossed and everything, it's like we're getting, this has been going on, and I just feel, I've been with my name is Stan Dwork, and I'm a volunteer for the Animal League. I've been there with them for 16 years. I just feel that, it's almost like, I feel we're a real asset to the town. I think we're a real value to the town. I think if you check with other towns on their budget for what we do, I think you've got a great deal. And I understand a little bit about the Governor Stoughton land, but I do know that I don't think the state paid anything for their land when they took it over for Unquity Road. I'm not saying that.
It was before my time, so I don't know.
Before your time, yes. But I mean, they took acres of it, and we're looking for 3/4 of an acre to an acre, and we want to do it the right way and everything else like that.
Right.
We're just looking for a little respect. We're looking for a light at the end of the tunnel. It's been so long, and the building is deteriorating so bad.
Right. I
We do a great job. You guys got a great animal control officer. I think we do a great job for the town. We got a great reputation. We've had people from all over contact us and adopt from us and everything else like that. And I just feel that, we just looking for a little respect and try to get a little light at the end of the tunnel. It's been so darn long.
So, Board, could we discuss this on April 22nd?
I'm fine with it.
Yeah,
On
I
the
think that's
agenda.
fine.
Is there any other information you need from us, or?
We have it all.
As far as, I like the Randolph Ave site, and the reason I like the Randolph Ave site is, we can do that without having to pay fair market value for the land. That gives you at least $200,000, maybe $300,000 more money to build that. So that's-
I'm sorry, Tom.
Go ahead.
I do have one question, though. We, in the town, the neighborhood meetings, there was a little undercurrent of possible litigation from some of the abutters. Has that been addressed or resolved?
It's being talked about,
Yeah,
yes,
there
but-
was talk from one of the abutters that wants to develop property in that area.
Right.
But,
We're trying to work something out.
Okay, so that's sort of still an up-in-the-air issue. Gotcha.
Yeah,
And that's
I think-
part of the reason, too, that it's been delayed a little bit. We want to kind of get that resolved before we go public with it.
Well, that
I think
makes
as
sense.
Mr. Dworkin said, I'm the newest member of the board here, obviously, and I haven't been part of the discussions as long as Tom and Dennis have been, but obviously you provide an important service, and I think, Tom, you talked at the last public meeting about the fact that this is a service the town has to provide for stray animals and
Right.
and wild.
we need an animal
Well,
control
we need to
officer,
have,
right, and
we need to
and a
have
place
this function. You're providing an important service. You're caught up kind of in a unique situation here because of the way the land is held at your current location, and we understand the condition of the building. We are Linda had talked to me about wanting to take part in the site walk, because we are working with the Historical Commission to go on the site walk of the other buildings. So certainly that's something that you'd all be welcome to join. It would be a public walk anyway.
Yes.
But I think since we have 3 meetings between the end of April and early May, we should try to maybe ask the town administrator to follow up on some of the conversations she's already having and see if we can.
Try and bring this to a head.
See if we
yeah.
can get it, maybe have the town administrator make a recommendation to the board at one of those meetings. Work with you in the meantime if there's more information that we need, but I think we do understand
Right.
the need that you have, and we're sympathetic to that.
Because we, like I said, we've been bounced, you're the newest, but, I mean, we've been told from anything like, go ahead and build, to don't put a dime into the place. And, you know, I mean, this is like,
I can imagine,
you know,
very
this has been
frustrating.
going on for many, many years, and the building has deteriorated. The mold is getting bigger and blacker, and.
You all do a tremendous job in the conditions you have to work in.
Well,
There's absolutely no question
We
about it.
try, we have a wonderful reputation. We'd like to have a wonderful shelter to go along with that reputation.
You got a great group of volunteers, I know that.
We have an attorney who has worked on these kinds of town volunteer group collaborations, so she can help us work out the structure of the relationship going forward.
Right, and that will take some working out
Yeah.
in terms of, you know, who owns it, how is it going to be owned and shared, and, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of details certainly once the
Absolutely.
site is.
Absolutely.
And you're on the agenda as part of the Governor Stoughton meeting rather than a regular board meeting, so Randolph Ave is not something we probably get into too
No,
much here, but
I-
you're here to talk about going down 2 roads rather than just the Randolph
Exactly.
Ave
That's exactly.
approach, and take a
Yeah.
dual approach.
Take a dual approach.
But like I said, we're looking for a light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah. That's.
So if you can give us a little more time, and then if we can't come, then we will certainly, you know.
We're ready,
Maybe
we're
this is,
ready on
I
either
think this is
front.
what we needed, though.
Right.
You guys to come in and give us a kick in the pants.
We'll find some
Proverbially.
space here for you.
For,
Thanks, Linda.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone.
for your time.
Appreciate it. So now we are making a motion to vacate, adjourn from the Governor Stoughton Fund.
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
On favor?
Aye.
Okay, we're back in the open meeting, and now I'll make a motion to enter executive session to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining,
Good night, Stan.
negotiations, and to consider the purchase, exchange, lease, or value of real property, lot number 1736, believing that having these discussions in open session will have a detrimental effect on the negotiating position of the body, and to return to open session to adjourn. Ms. Conlon?
Yes.
Mr. Hurley?
Yes.
Mr. Cohen, yes. We're in executive session.